Hi everyone, my name is Shanice and welcome back to my channel. Today I will be doing the 2024 Big Books Challenge announcement where I will be listing the 12 big books that I plan on reading this year. Now, I failed my challenge last year. I basically didn't read October, November, or December, or really I didn't complete the books. October was supposed to be the Iliad, which I did start, and I was really liking, but I just didn't continue to pick it up after a certain point. Then November was supposed to be Almanac of the Dead. It's a shame that I didn't really pick it up. I think I read about 25 pages and, I just wasn't in the mood to read it. I don't think it was the right time for me to read it. So I didn't. And then December, I'm actually planning on finishing it potentially this month. That one was Dombey and Son, and I was really liking it. I think I'm on page like 300 something. A ways to go, but I am really liking it, and do hope to finish in the future sometime. So I did read and complete 9 of the big books that I decided to read last year, and then failed to complete 3 of them, which I guess isn't as bad as I'm making it seem. For this year, it's really important for me to just chill. I have made a list. I am very excited to read all of the books on the list. I own all of the books, so it'll be a good way to tackle my physical TBR. But if I don't finish it, that's okay. The books will still be here. I will still be alive. I'm not planning on dying anytime soon. And I will have time to read, if not these books this year, then another year in the future. So I'm just gonna have fun with it and not take it too seriously, but it is a challenge, so I am going to be trying a little bit harder to read these 12 books than other books in the year. But yeah, just as a general rule, and if you decide to read some of these books along with me, let's just have fun and relax and enjoy the reading experience. One of my favorite things to do is to curate the list of these books every single year. I love researching books. I love finding new authors. I really take it seriously, picking a diverse range of books, whether that be, some books in translation, some books that are literary fiction, some nonfiction, some fantasy, and also balancing out the moods. So really take a lot of care in choosing which book for which month, not packing too many very serious books all together back to back. Just spacing everything out, pacing myself pretty well. I'm very happy with the list for 2024. So drum roll, everyone. I will start, of course, with the month of January, which is this month, and I've naturally already started reading Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb. It is very chunky, naturally. It is 830 pages. I am supposed to read about 27 pages per day. I did find the audiobook on Hoopla. Audiobooks have been a lifesaver for me. It helps with my focus, and it just helps me get through these books a little bit quicker than I normally would. I am currently on page 164. So far, I have met Althea. She is a young woman, daughter to Captain Bessrit, who is the captain of the live ship Vivacia, and live ships are made out of this magical wood, which absorbs the spirit and memories of the captains that have sailed her. And essentially the rule is that 3 generations of the same family have to die on the ship in order for a live ship to be quickened, which in turn means that it comes alive with all the memories of the deceased. So it's almost like their souls are on board. I'm probably not getting the nuances right because I'm only on page 164, but what seems to be the trouble here is that Althea's father is very sick. He is coming close to being that third generation to pass away. And so now who is going to take over? Althea thinks she clearly is the one. Her father has sort of trained her under him for her whole life, and she's ready to take on the captainship of the Vivacia. Others have other plans, and alongside that story is the story of Kinnet, I believe, and he is a traitor, and he has his whole philosophy about uniting the pirate kingdoms under him, naturally. Yeah, I haven't gotten too deep into his storyline, but so far it's very high fantasy to me because I normally don't read this kind of genre, but I'm really loving it. It's giving me sort of George R.R. Martin vibes, and that's not just because his blurb is on the cover, but it really is pulling me into this fantasy time period. So I am very much enjoying this, and this was published in 1998. So yeah, I've heard so many things about Robin Hobb and all of her books, so I am thrilled to finally be on board with this. Next up for the month of February, I've chosen the Makioka Sisters by Junichiro Tanizaki, and it was translated from the Japanese to English by Edward G. Seidensticker. I think if you've watched videos on my channel before, then you know how much I like an intergenerational saga, one that spans time periods, and this seems to be a little bit of that. It says in the back that it is about 4 aristocratic women who try to preserve a way of life in Japan that is vanishing. They seem to be part of this aristocratic family, and slowly that way of life is fading away. According to the back also, it is filled with vignettes of upper-class Japanese life and capturing both the decorum and the heartache of its protagonist, the Makioka sisters, is a classic of international literature. I'm finding that the more books I go into barely knowing anything, those tend to be the books that I enjoy the most. The text is rather small. It's a lot of words on a page, is all I'm saying. I haven't read that many Japanese works of literature, which is kind of crazy, but that is sadly the case. But I know this is really revered around the world as one of the best to come out of Japan. So just super excited to read this, and I will be vlogging my experience reading this one throughout the month of February. For the month of March, I've chosen Native Son by Richard Wright. This book is about a young man named Baker Thomas. It's set in Chicago, and he finds a job with a very wealthy white family, and bad things happen. I have seen a movie adaptation of it, the HBO one. I forget the actor's name, but he was in Moonlight. He was one of the main actors in Moonlight. What stands out apparently in this book is that it's written like a crime novel. It sort of famously deconstructed and unpacked the stereotype of like an angry black man. Is he created? Does society and does his circumstance force him into that role? I've been wanting to read this since forever. You know, this was going to be one of my reads during my Chicago trip a few weeks ago. Stay tuned next week because a little vlog of my time there will be coming. But it was way too long. And as you see from the vlog next week, I did practically no reading. So it was for the best that I didn't take this with me, but that just means that March I will have this to look forward to. Next up is one of my 2 nonfiction picks for this year. So for April, I am going to read Bloodlands, Europe Between Hitler and Stalin by Timothy Snyder. I basically bought a ton of books when the war against Ukraine started, and this was one of them. And I saw Jennifer from Insert Literary Pun here raving about this one, so I decided to pick it up. So I don't really know much about this historical period other than, you know, the obvious But apparently Timothy Snyder here, he did a lot of research, and there is some controversy on his research, but he talks about mass murders that happen at the hands of the Soviet Union in the 1930s and 1940s that happened outside of death camps during the Holocaust. So some people say that he incorrectly is trying to compare the Holocaust and the Nazis to these mass murders and the Soviet Union. But I don't know, I haven't read this yet, so I will make up my own mind. And yeah, obviously enormous. I typically don't read deep history books like this, so just, you know, wish me luck. Then for the month of May, I'm doing a little bit of a historical fiction, so still in line with the history book of the previous month, but this time it is The Fraud by Zadie Smith. This just came out late last year. I actually went to a reading with Zadie Smith and also Yad Yassi. Yad Yassi moderated the discussion, and not to brag, but look who signed my book. I mean, I still can't believe that happened and that I own a signed Zadie Smith. Yeah, she's glorious, she's brilliant. I mean, just look at her, she's amazing. So yes, and I am happy that in the mix of the nonfiction and of some classics, I do have a recently published book too, and not everything is just backlisted, although that's obviously great too. But this one, it's a little complicated, so I'm gonna read a little bit from the insert flap. So this is a fictional retelling of a very famous trial called the Tichborne trial. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. A butcher from Australia, he claims that he was the heir of an estate and title. This man, Roger Tichborne, is claiming he is somebody, but pretty much no one believes him, because how could he be? He is poor. And so you have a star witness at the trial. His name is Andrew Bogle, and he grew up enslaved in Jamaica. And he is brought to London to, like I said, be the witness in this trial. And Mrs. Touche, another character here, is a Scottish housekeeper, and she just has a lot of opinions on many things because of her social proximity to aristocratic people. She does know of Charles Dickens and other writers and culturally important people. So of course she finds her way as a spectator of this trial, and I guess she crossed paths with Mr. Bogle, and honestly I'm not totally sure how all of it comes together, but from the reading that I attended, it sounds really funny, and I do love books that explore the truth and the line between fiction and fact, the role that stories play in our imagination and our framing of reality, of breaking down how we determine who is right and who isn't, justice and injustice. So I really don't know what to expect with this, but I am of course very excited to read it and report back to you in May with my thoughts on The Fraud. For June, I chose a classic, and this one is Villette by Charlotte Bronte. I have to show you this Crime Against Humanity by, you know, Wordsworth Classics, no offense, but what were you thinking when you printed this? What is the size of this? You need a magnifying lens. Yeah, so don't love the copy that I have, but you know, if I like the book in the end, maybe I will upgrade my edition. This is based on Charlotte Bronte's life. She was a teacher in Brussels, and this follows her experiences as a teacher in Brussels. That's all I know, and that's all I really need to know. I really loved Jane Eyre when I read it, and I haven't read anything else by Charlotte Bronte since. So I've had this on my shelves for years. The pages are now yellowing, as you can see, and yeah, if it's half as good as Jane Eyre, then I'm in for a good time. And then for July, my birthday month, I tend to pick a book that I am sure I'm going to love. And so for this year, I've chosen Midnight's Children by Salman Rushdie. What I know about this: there is a child named Salim Sinai who was born exactly at midnight in 1947 on August 15th, which happens to be the day of independence for India. So as he is born, so is India. So in a fabulous sense, it seems like Salim has these telepathic links to other children who are also born at midnight on August 15th, 1947. And the book explores in a symbolic way the similarities between raising a child and creating an independent nation. Another book I've owned for a really long time, and well, I don't want to say that the only reason I'm choosing this is because of recent events with, you know, what happened with Salman Rushdie, but that definitely brought him to the forefront and made me want to really finally read this, because there are so many of his books that sound like they would be right up my alley. So I'll start here and we'll see, but I have very, very high hopes for this one. I also have immensely high hopes for this next one, my August pick, which is Medical Apartheid by Harriet A. Washington. This one is going to be very harrowing, and I've read portions of it as part of research for some of my master's papers, but not in full. What it is essentially is an exploration of how African Americans' bodies have been used, either willingly or unwillingly, to aid the progress of science and the medical fields in the United States. So you can just imagine it was pretty horrific. We already sort of know what happened in the field of gynecology, and we also know about Tuskegee and not giving certain Black patients the vaccination for it, just to see how it would affect them for the benefit, I guess, of everybody else without their knowledge. So there's that. So yeah, predict 5 stars, and yeah, I hope other people also pick this up with me, if not in August, then any other time. And if you have read it, let me know what you thought about this. Yeah, I think this is one of the books I'm most excited to read. For the month of September, I have another translated fiction. This one is Our Share of Night by Mariana Enriquez, and it was translated by Megan McDowell, who has translated so many works of Latin American literature. And I guess I have some thoughts on that, but that is not for this video. But I saw Shaylin from Shaylin Writes raving about this one. They gave it 5 stars, and whatever Shaylin really, really likes, I borrow from the library. I buy my own copy immediately. They have incredible taste. So I'm gonna read from the back. It says here, moving back and forth in time from London in the swinging 1960s to the brutal years of Argentina's military dictatorship and its turbulent aftermath, Our Share of Night is a novel like no other. A family story, a ghost story, a story of the occult and the supernatural, a book about the complexities of love and longing with queer subplots and themes. This is the masterwork of one of Latin America's most original novelists, a mesmerizing writer who demands to be read. I have read some of this author's short stories and have enjoyed them, and she has a lot of, or not a lot, but I think 2 or 3 short story collections that I've been meaning to read for a really long time. But let's see if I get along with her long form fiction first. Again, recently published, so very happy for some front listed, although at this point I guess it is technically backlisted titles, and happy that it's another work of translated fiction. I actually just remembered that the next 2 titles are also translated fiction. The next one for the month of October, fittingly, is The Labyrinth of the Spirits by Carlos Ruiz Zafón, and he wrote a series of books, the first of which is The Shadow of the Wind. I read that. My grandma actually read the entire series, and she said it made her head spin and made her head hurt also because of how complex it was. I have only read The Shadow of the Wind. This is technically the last book in the series, but I have the whole year to catch up on the books in between. I do own them. and they're not super long. They're not the shortest books either, but again, this is going to be for October, so I have a bit of time to get there. This one follows Alicia, set in 1938, and let's see, she is now an investigator for the secret police in Madrid. She's tasked with investigating the case of the disappearance of, what is his name? Mauricio Valls, who is Spain's Minister of Culture. And so the way this ties with the other books in the series, it says here, navigating the dark labyrinths of Barcelona, Alicia is aided by the Sempere family as well as the unforgettable Fermin, ultimately confronting the hideous missing pieces of the puzzle. And I didn't mention this one is translated from the Spanish by Lucia Graves, and I believe she also translated the other books in the series, but I will double check and put a text on screen in case I'm wrong. But I just thought this would be really fitting for the month of October, kind of spooky, kind of gothic, but also fun. And according to Bookpage, it is a masterpiece. Can you see that? So let's see if Bookpage is right in October. And so the next book for the month of November is Berlin Alexanderplatz by Alfred Dublin, and it was translated from German to English by Michael Hoffman. I believe this is one of the most recent translations, and what this is about, there's a man named Franz Bieberkopf who is just released from prison. He's sent back into Berlin. He went to prison for some stupid stuff, and he wants to make his life better, but things happen. He gets caught up in not so good things, and this seems to be a black comedy. And when I read this, I will be watching the Fassbinder, I don't know if it's a miniseries, but it's a television show. I think it has about 14 episodes. So I would like to do a compare contrast of that TV show and this book. And I didn't even know that they had a Fassbinder quote on the back. I will just show you very quickly right there, but I'll read it. It says, I found myself reading Berlin Alexanderplatz in a way that you could hardly call reading, more like devouring, gobbling, gulping down, and these expressions still don't do justice to that way of reading, which dangerously often wasn't reading at all, but more like suffering, despair, and fear. So yeah, I'm hoping this is as funny as I'm imagining it to be. And then lastly, for the month of December, I chose A Tale for the Time Being by Ruth Ozeki. This one is about a young girl who's kind of sad about her life. She's very depressed. She's sitting in front of a river or in front of a body of water, and drifting up to the shore comes this little lunchbox. In it is a letter written by Nao Yasutani, and this sad girl opens the lunchbox, finds the letter, reads it, and now is trying to discover more about Nao and her life, and in that finding herself. A book that has just been on my shelves for ages, and I've heard nothing but great things. Please let me know if you have read this. And I know Ruth Ozeki recently won the Women's Prize for fiction, and I've just been meaning to read anything by her. So yeah, this will be my last big book of the year, and I'm feeling more positive about 2024 generally with my mood. And again, if I fail, I fail, and at one point in my life I will read these books, but my goal is to complete those 12 that I just mentioned. Please join me if you want to read some of these books too. Let me know down below if you have read any of them or which books you want to join me in reading for this year. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Let's be excited and motivated for more reading this year. Yeah, I will see you all next week, and yeah, have a great rest of your day. Yeah, bye.